Yo, so today on the podcast, we have Alex Hitchman, who is a 20-year-old entrepreneur from the UK who dropped out of university and quit multiple jobs to start an online business, helping people with the mental side of entrepreneurship. Most of the conversation is about the internal work that it takes to grow, as well as distractions, self-sabotage, reframing risk, environment change, and just increasing your own self-understanding. Alex also shares his story about how he was able to fly his parents out to Bali, which for him was the whole point. I will preface this saying that this was one of the earliest podcasts that I ever filmed. And if you watch back a 1 hour plus recording of yourself, you'll probably be horrified at how often you say like, or you say yeah to the guest whilst they're speaking. So my hosting skills have definitely improved. It was also Alex's first podcast, but none of that takes away from the conversation. And there is some really good insights in here, especially if you are a younger entrepreneur, you're somebody stuck in that learning but not earning phase. You feel a bit stuck on the start line, a bit scattered in terms of your focus. I think that this could be a useful story from two people who have gone through that early stage of entrepreneurship, and one person, Alex, who is very self-aware and a good communicator about mindset and internal beliefs. So with all that said, I hope you enjoy the conversation.
The natural progression of self-improvement is a business, because self-improvement is solving your own problems and business is solving other people's problems.
Yeah, I definitely think I wasn't like officially part of the self-improvement community, but I was definitely in that where all I wanted to do was improve myself, is to get that side of you where you are constantly 1% improving every day. Obviously, it was like scrolling reels and see all this stuff. Go, fuck yeah, let's go. It was just like all of this was a base of getting to a point where I can now help other people, because you have to help yourself before you help others. And that allowed me to pour from a pretty full cup at the time. And so I felt no need to do a lot of stuff for other people. I was like pretty in my own shoes, which felt really good. And I guess at like that point when I felt pretty, within myself, I was just about to quit that job, and I went on that trip. I also had a breakup just at that very couple months just before then. It was kind of torn that version of myself apart. Like all the self improvement I had done, it felt like it was wasted time. Didn't feel like I was doing anything right, and sort of questioning a lot of stuff. So obviously that trip, people typically say they found themselves, but I really felt like that few months where that all happened allowed me to find myself enough to then take that step. All that self improvement I did, all that, confidence building, all the evidence building had really given me that fuel. And once it had lost, I could gain it back just as quick. And yeah, the main thing is like, if you're starting from zero, self-improvement is one of the only ways to really getting back that evidence. You can build so much self-trust. You can put yourself in a position where everything you do, you're totally in with. Whereas other people who haven't built that self-trust to be like questioning whether or not the gym is the right move, or whether or not they want to go for this route, that will translate into so much other stuff in your life. And I think self-improvement is the best way to marry it all together into confidence mode.
I totally believe as well that like in business, like most of the problems in there are problems to do with self-growth. Like to become better at sales, you have to be more confident in yourself and like what you're doing. You have to have greater self-belief. And just on that, how do you currently help clients? And did you have that own transformation like for yourself before you started helping other people with the same result?
Yeah, I help people mainly with the fact that they need to get out of their own heads and start executing all the right things, aka the constraint with the business, and get forward into that mode like constantly. But mainly through like giving them essentially a full mirror board where they can look at and they understand we've outlined their entire ideal personality or identity, so that every time that they're falling short, we can hold them accountable to that. But I had that through Thunderbirds.
That's really cool.
They're like the accountability within that taught me that is the most important thing to be able to get someone to a transformation.
Yeah,
because you can give them all the information, you can give them everything they need to know, but they will sit there and do absolutely nothing. They will, like, if you're training them to get 6-pack abs, you're giving them the entire workout plan, they will sit there and eat donuts for as long as you don't hold them accountable. And it's like the main part of that is accountability. I built a system around that, but when I had my own transformation, there was a guy who did calls every week about the boats, And that alone kept me accountable because it was once a week. And it was super interesting to me, the fact that when I hopped on those calls, I made progress.
Yeah.
I was like, why is this? It was everything to do with the mindset side of things. So combining helping you with mindset, like get over their own selves, and accountability to when you're being held accountable to improving your own mental state and yourself. That is like the biggest feedback loop to like skyrocket me. After I spent time on those calls, I think it was like April, May, or yeah. Once I started my business, I was like teetering my offer and all this stuff. So it was more like February to me.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about my jobs, all this stuff I had going on, like everything that I had in my way, and just holding myself accountable to those things. I made 3 months worth of progress. I'd say like 10 months worth of progress for the average person or average entrepreneur in 3. And I quit multiple jobs, got fired from one. I, moved back home, just did everything I could. I dropped out of uni, went on a trip with all my entrepreneur boys, like that very quickly spiraled into like, I'm now a coach who's making a decent amount. I've got some demo clients, got a deal to offer. Now I was like, I'm ready to invest. I'm ready to go for it. And I think that like main transformation, even if it's 0 to 3K a month, was huge for me.
Yeah.
That was the point where I was like, nothing's working. I wasn't making very much money in the point of saying I had built the skills, but was still in the learning, not earning phase. And it was quite daunting. And then seeing that happen, I think is proof beyond measure that it is just staying in the game and like just quick action that is really going to step forward.
And in entrepreneurship, it is upsized returns and non-linear payoffs. So like in a job, you're earning X amount per hour. The more you work, predictably, the more your income increases, but it's capped. Whereas in entrepreneurship, it's very common, especially at the start, to have an experience of making very little or no money for months or years. And then suddenly you start to make a lot of money quite fast. Like drawing back on some of my own experience, I was working for myself for a while, wasn't making any money really. And then started working with somebody else for a bit, didn't make any money in the first couple of months. 3rd month, we had a week where 2 calls just fell into place, sold them both a high ticket offer and like made 13 grand in a week. And I was like, shit, like this can work.
Yeah.
But in a normal job, you don't go 0, 0, 13 grand like in the weeks. But in entrepreneurship, you can. And not just 13, you could go to 50 or 100, especially if, like, how scalable is your offer? Why can't you just sell it to more people? Why can't you just increase your prices?
Yeah, I think that the stage of not winning, like being in the trenches, is honestly the best period. Like everyone says it, who's sort of like reached what most would deem like the highs of highs. But that period of absolutely eating shit, not having anything, is honestly one of the best periods because you don't realize it until looking backwards. But you have got so much building in that phase that's happening, and it just like when you look back, you're like, I'm a completely different person. Even if I'm making absolutely nothing, I have quit my job. I've traveled. I've spoken to people I never thought was possible. I'm in a network with like 100 other guys who are all doing the same shit.
Beliefs get shattered, like in that journey.
Obliterated. Like, that's so beautiful to me because you've never, when you're in that trenches phase, you're always, oh, let's make money. And there's like barely any room in your head to look back and like go, fuck, I've actually come so far. But then once you start seeing people drop off your frequency, you start moving out of the gray area where you don't really know many entrepreneurs and, everyone around you is sort of like looking at you weird. Then you start like fully dropping off. That is the period where I really felt like I was making money, but not really,
Yeah.
like I was gaining wealth in my life. The fact that I had gone through all this shit, eating a bunch of stuff, and I hadn't made much money at that point, but I started to see my life physically changing.
Yeah.
Like that's when I look back and I realized I had so much that I had transformed to the point where everything else was falling off.
Yeah. Some of this comes down to people and environment, such as when I visited Dubai and then you're around supercars, super rich people, 8-figure entrepreneurs. They're just the same. They're human. They have to make decisions every day. They have families. They're just normal people. And when you see them as people who you can actually like copy, emulate, take inspiration from, rather than as like imaginary objects of, they're not living in a different world to you. They're living a flight away next door.
I said this in one of my YouTube videos, but you're no different from the people that you look up to, they just realize something sooner than you did. And it's the fact that we are no different. The main thing that you get from travel is seeing those people. I don't think I would be able to be in this room now if it wasn't for speaking to some random bald guy at Techno Rave, because I didn't know those people in the UK. And people and environment, again, it's a huge part of it. But it's when you look back and you realize that none of those people were any different. Like, I'm even no different from the people who are still working at Fogas, that they just haven't realized something. And all of that stuff is super important to keep you grounded in that. And I think even just people in the environment, like, you can bog it down, you can complain about it, oh, the people around me aren't great, or the environment I'm not in is great, but just realize you are still no different from everyone else who is doing where you want to be. They also had those same struggles, but they realized something sooner than you did, which is that we're not any different from anyone else. We are living on the same planet, and they've done exactly that, so it's possible.
If you open up your surface area for receiving luck and you speak to more people, or you go to an environment that is full of interesting people, you don't have to get lucky. Like, there's a very high likelihood that you'll meet somebody who's going to give you transformative experiences.
Who was one of those people for you?
Well, I would say one of them would be my business partner, Chris. Or like the whole row of people in Bangkok were interesting. Or a role model who I had on YouTube back in 2023 would have been Jack Hopkins. I don't know if you know him, but like big in the online space at the time. High ticket sales, go make money, go get Jack, go to Thailand. I went to Jack Hopkins' fight. Nearly all of them were doing online fitness coaches, some like funnel design, salespeople, etc. So yeah, he was one of those people. But if you're at home in your town, going to the same job every day, staying on the sofa, never speaking to new people, never saying yes to new experiences, never traveling, you're making it really hard for opportunities to come into your life. How can I make it easier for opportunities to enter my life, which is by taking risks or like making new decisions.
Yeah, I like that you put that in quotation marks. Well, the main thing with risk is that we have like tons of conditioning built up from where we're born to where we are now of what risk actually is. But the only thing a risk is a decision, and that decision splits off into two outcomes. Like either this happens or this happens, and the risk often not will always fall to one more than the other. It'll be more like 90-1. But you just need to be really, really good at understanding that none of that matters. And every risk that you take is just a decision. Every risk that you take is just a decision. And the more decisions you make, the more risks you take, the more likely you are to be in the perfect position where all of those branches have led you to a certain thing. And I think when people say, "Oh, I'm gonna take a risk here," you look at their risk and you go, "Mate, that's my morning routine." And that's not being egotistical. Like, people just have this built-up perception and this built-up fear that has accumulated over a lot of years of what parents have said. Like, it's like risky, like don't do this, don't do that. All the negative experiences reinforced by ego, which is like my favorite topic ever. What you need to realize is it genuinely is never that deep. When I dropped out of university, I wasn't thinking, "Oh shit, I'm gonna be homeless next week," and we did all this. Like, I genuinely knew that in the grand scheme of my life, I decided to just not carry on. That alone made it completely much less of a risk, because I wasn't in that fear mindset or like living in that perception of what the risk actually was. It was just a decision. You have to like delete the risk out of the risk for it not to be risky, because at that point you will literally do so much more. You'll be able to bounce back if anything, God forbid, does happen, but it most likely 90-1 will not happen if you're in that mindset as well. It's just something I decided to do. And like when people say, "That was so risky, how did you do that?" Like, but did you not think it was going to fail? And like, I love the Marty Supreme quote though. It's like, it didn't even enter my consciousness, like from that's been popping up on socials recently. But everything that you think is risky is not risky. It's all just built up in your head. And so like anything you do now you think is risky, just know that's the exact same thing.
It's a journey as well, because from where we are as well, there are still things which we would perceive to be risky or which would make our stomachs jump, which people who are at a higher level, maybe 10 years ahead, or they just had certain experiences that have made those things more familiar to them, they're thinking the the thing which we're dealing with is like not risky at all. Like, what are you doing? Do you think that there are actually some experiences that can't be coached?
Yeah, I think the pure volume thing, like you can tell people exactly how to do the volume, how to like stay accountable to do the volume. When I say volume, I mean like just doing immense amount of a certain thing, like because people don't realize.
Usually, quite often, sales activities like sending outreach messages, just to give an example.
Yeah, for exactly that, to be honest, because like Alex Hormozy says, which I love this quote, you don't realize how far the goalpost is and how much more you need to do to get closer towards it. And like you can't show them the goalpost, you can't show them how far away or close it is, because when they're in that stage that we mentioned earlier about, you know, making nothing, eating shit, like in the self-improvement learning phase, that goalpost will be like clouded as ever. You won't be able to see it whatsoever. But once you learn the volume game and learn how, you know, quickly you need to act, how often you need to act, like what you need to cut out of your life, what bullshit you need to get out of your brain in order to get that, you will never go back. Then that's something you physically can't teach someone, because it is just that relentless. It's that relentless pursuit of something that you can't just innately give someone. You can guide them towards it. It's like you can't you can't make a horse drink, but you can lead them towards that. All of that comes from the fact that once you reach that crossroads and you're like, you genuinely have no other option but to do the work, get it all done, really push yourself forward in a certain direction. You can't like really push someone ahead. You can't like push someone off a cliff. You can tell them you can walk up to the cliff, because that wouldn't make any sense. It's something that I really wanted to put into this podcast. Is it literally is, you are the risk. You are the reason why you are not doing anything that you want to be doing right now. It's not as risky, but you have something in your brain that is constantly sabotaging you. And anything that you do is like constantly a battle between you and that person. So if you can't do the volume, or you know, someone else can't teach you something, it's because of that up there. And like to be the most diluted version of yourself, where you literally are one-to-one, like true self, the ego doesn't have any hold on you, where you can take as much risk as you want. Like often that will be top 0.001% people who have done so much in business or life, entrepreneurship, whatever you want or you perceive as successful. They will all dissolve that voice.
There's still a role though for the coach there though,
yeah,
which I guess is like keeping them accountable to be able to teach themselves, or teaching them that it is unteachable and that there's no way that you can get through this other than confronting it. I'm here, so you have to do it.
Yeah.
What are the main reasons that you think people like self-sabotage in your experiences?
Distractions, for sure. I think that's the main one, because when you are distracted, you are not like with yourself. You are constantly, your brain is elsewhere. And I think that really takes you away from the task at hand, and it leads to you seeing that as normal. And that's something which I'll talk about ego in a bit more depth here, which is like they take one experience and they, no matter, you know, how good the other stuff would be, they take the one negative example and universalize it. So when you have a distraction that you keep around you in your life, they universalize that as just part of your life, part of what you do. And so it doesn't see it as something that is sabotage worthy. So it's often when you get blindsided by distractions that you are self-sabotaging. I think that's completely true for absolutely everyone in entrepreneurship. There was always something to distract you. There's always something that'll take your attention away from what is really important, whether it be, you know, anything that isn't typically living straight within the business, or, you know, being on Instagram reels in between work blocks. I see it with everyone. I see it with absolutely everyone, including myself, that distractions are the main killer.
Yeah.
Because you are self-sabotaging yourself by keeping those things around, because your ego's like, sorry, that your ego is like, that's completely normal.
Yeah.
I that's normal. One of the main things that you can do is learning like mind control, which is essentially getting yourself in that calm and clear state, but you can see what your ego is doing. You can see what is universalized. You can see what distractions you're keeping around you and how it's actually affecting you. Because people will be in that loop of distractions and letting them into their lives because they see that as completely normal. But once you get that sort of sight of what has been going on inside your brain, you'll be disgusted.
Yeah.
There'll be so much like, why am I on reels right now? Why am I listening to the person who hasn't got the life that I want? Make everything else so boring that it becomes fun is one of my favorite methods. So getting out of any slump or anything that you feel like you're not able to do work. And the reason why I love telling people to shut their phones in the drawers and everything is because of like physically understanding what Instagram actually does, or just being on your phone on social media actually does. And what the top 0.001% are really good at from what I've been studying is they close loops pretty well.
I love that. Like, that's a massive thing with me, and which I talk about a lot as well.
Yeah. And what Instagram does is it just causes a shit ton of open loops. So every time you do outside of your work, well, outside of your phone, sorry, everything else becomes an open loop magnet. Like when I want to go grab a drink, or when I want to go grab some food, or when I want to speak to people, I'm constantly penduluming between different tasks, because all Instagram does is it gives you open talk loop, open talk loop, open talk loop. And that just puts so much mini stress in your brain, where that continues for like, the next 6 hours. I'm not joking. Like if you spend the morning scrolling reels, you'll see it at 4 p.m. where you're like, oh shit, where's my day gone? All of this stuff comes under the fact that you have so many open loops that have carried you into a state where I've not actually got much done. People think they're locked in, but until they start putting their phone away for a month straight, they won't realize how like much time they were losing by allowing the open loops. The only way to do that is through what I mentioned earlier, online control. I'm saying only way just so people have something to go look at and to learn from, which is if you can really look at your phone in absolute disgust and realize, like, of all the data I've got, this is bad. This is bad data. Every time I go on my phone, I know I'm going to go on reels. Bad data. That is going to be super useful because you'll be able to see it, and your ego won't have any interference. You won't have any open loops going in your brain. You'll finally be able to take distraction out of the heart of your life as an entrepreneur.
Because really, we all have limited resources. Like, we all have limited time, limited money, and limited energy. Most people who are starting off have especially limited money, and everybody has limited time. So what that leaves them with is the only thing that they can really maximize is their energy. And if you're letting open loops drain your energy, if you're letting context switching, so switching between different tasks and states of mind, which, like, scrolling reels is an extremely stimulating experience where you're switching emotions from feeling angry, happy, sad, laughing. It's using so much energy, and it's making it really difficult to focus on the important things. Me and my business partner, we build Notion workspaces, or we systemize other businesses. So a part of that is as well closing loops. So what in their business can be systemized, what can be automated, what can be delegated, so that they no longer have to think about it. Because if their business is running off systems, it's like a clear, organized Notion workspace where everything is tracked and visible, then they don't have to juggle every single thing. Being on the front foot, closing distractions so that things are systemized and automated, like, is the way that you get clarity on how to move your business forward.
Yeah. I genuinely think that's the most valuable thing you can do for someone. It's just subtract, remove, or at least point it out exactly what's not the thing that needs to be working on. It's what coach does, and it's what consultant does. Like, focus on this, and only this will take care of the rest. Systemize what you can do in this space, but for now, this thing, right?
And often we know what we need to do. Like, what is the one most important thing to be doing? To start, it's often outreach. After you're doing like certain well enough in your business where you have a fulfillment system, it's probably shit tons of content, or obviously depends on your business. Maybe it's like, I just need to be doing scripts. I just need to be doing creative stuff. All I need to do in my role is speak to manufacturers. I just need to be doing really good at that. I just need to be doing sales. But most people know what it is that they need to do to, like, really bring their business forward. All right. So we've talked about how you went from working in the UK to starting your own business, moving abroad, making online income. One interesting part of this transformation, and probably a place where people sabotage, is family, and like judgments of family, expectations of family. I know that you have actually brought your family like out to Bali, which is extremely cool. Have your parents always been supportive? Were they ever just very confused by what you're doing? And did they start to believe in you, etc.? I just want to hear the family story and how that's impacted you in business.
Yeah, all of the above. I think it was when I was employment setting that I was like telling people I wanted to invest in mentorships, and they were like really skeptical and all this stuff. Like, I ended up getting scammed a couple of times, so it was like good on them. Like, mum and dad are always right type of mentality early on. But
Same here.
yeah, honestly, it's super important to listen to your parents and to never take them out of the equation. I think like family first before anything. Every decision you make, like I always keep them in line. They're always part of my North Star, if you will. But growing up in entrepreneurship to leaving university, all this stuff, building a business, they were fully supported. Even my mum posts content, so when I started posting my videos, she was ecstatic. Right?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, like all of this stuff, I'm super blessed. Could not be more blessed, because I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for my parents. That's not to say like I'm wholly there because of them, but I am there. I'm here right now because I focused on what was completely conducive with spending as much time as possible with them, or building a life where I get to look back and I've spent as much time with family and just enjoying life with them, because they are these single people who have been with you from the very start and will be with you until you're looking back on your deathbed and you're realizing all your memories with them were the only things you'll be focusing on. It wouldn't be the money, the cars, the status, the lifestyle you lived, or some of the memories you lived that, but they were still tainted by materialistic stuff. It will always be with family. And at 20 years old, I think it's more, it's the most important thing I should be focusing on until the end. And going back to what you mentioned on that, there were moments where they were like really skeptical on all fours about it. Like university, we had some family drama, and like they were really supportive, but then there was other parts of it, like all of that, I think, is the markers that you are doing something like expansive with the legacy of the family.
Yeah.
But yeah, having sort of taken them out to Bali, all of that has come about from being in that family first headspace. No matter what they say, or no matter what like people might be experiencing in terms of family disapproval, like they don't see that as the right path. Like everything that they know had been programmed up until this point to where they know that this is the outcome you should be going for. Despite all of that they had as well, they still felt supported.
Yeah.
Because of that one fact where like you could just see it in my eyes back then, where I had so much conviction in myself that this was going to happen. This is exactly what my life is going to look like. I'm going to build this business, going to do a lot more. And when I obviously got the results, they were like ecstatic. And I started posting content. I started getting clients. I started doing all this stuff. And every time I came home or I called them, it would be like another light lit up there.
Was there any specific moment when you showed them that like, Mom, like I just made like $2,000, I just made X grand, like it's real, like that was there a moment when they got it, and did they previously not get it despite being supported?
Right? I think the moment where they got it was when I invested into someone, because then it was like, it wasn't just oh, I'm taking this route now type of thing. Obviously I just like casually, nonchalantly mentioned that I made like 5K yesterday. It was pretty cool. And then they're like, okay,
well, they're nice.
We're done. And it was like all of that stuff was pretty subtle, to be honest. It wasn't like this massive moment where church bells started playing and everything was like click. It was that where it was the small moments of just conversation with them, where it's like telling them about my day, telling them what I did. It was all normal to me, but to them it was like, yeah, they loved it. I mean, they supported me from the very start, but they honestly had zero clue what I did at first. What they mentioned to their friends was like,
inaccurate.
Inaccurate is hard. It always it always will be.
So an important part of it is we have conditioning, and so do our parents. Everybody has different conditioning. Different people's conditioning will be deeper or more risk averse, less trusting of different types of thoughts. And not everybody will be as lucky as probably both of us have to have supported parents who would believe in them. I think it does come down to the conviction part as well, believing in yourself first, and then understanding that. So in my case with my parents, I think they need to see the logics of it. Like it.
Yeah.
Whereas you get to a certain point where your self-belief feels higher than like what you can just logically communicate. You start to believe in yourself if you have a mindset transformation that, well, I can make this work. I am going to make this work, even if you're not making it work yet. Whereas you cannot always communicate that to somebody else. But when you communicate numbers to someone, like, look, I've actually closed this deal. We've delivered all of these projects this month. Or you actually try to explain the technical side of like what your business does. If you take the time to explain it to your parents, like they usually do understand. And yeah, I think some people's parents are more judgmental, or it's harder for some entrepreneurs to start because of the expectations of their parents for them to
Yeah.
get a particular job, go to university.
Even then, I would actually disagree with that. I have a ton of people I'm working with, people I've worked in the past, which their parents have disapproved of whatever they did. But like you said earlier, they just have to be like, you have to go through a certain system many, many times in order for them to understand certain things. They start to get it and they start to really support you and all this stuff. It is so possible to get that outcome, but most people just dismiss it and they say they're never going to have this outcome.
Yeah.
We're never going to be able to include them in the life that I'm building.
I think it's a beautiful thing to do because, yeah, I do think some people, they split, they say like, okay, they're never going to understand. They're incapable of understanding what I'm doing. Whereas instead, if you lean in and you actually make an effort to communicate what you're doing, try and relate it to their experiences in life in a way that they can understand it, then yeah, they can be taken as a part of the journey. And then you're more integrated, you're more whole if like your family understand and support what you're doing.
Yeah.
What did it feel like to bring your parents out to Bali?
It felt like it felt like a self-actualization of everything I've been working towards. If that makes sense. Like, if it's family first, up until this point, I hadn't actually had any evidence that I was doing anything family first. And I sort of flipped that switch beforehand. I think it was middle of the year that I realized I wanted to do this in front of my parents. And I told absolutely fucking everyone I was going to do it. And before it even happened, I just said it so many times. It was like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And with that, I was like, this, when it finally happened, that is the first moment where I realized like, this is the only thing that matters. Truly, I had it in my mind before, like, this is pretty important. This is what I need to be doing. My family's first, everything. I said it out loud so many times. But the moment I was there, that was when everything clicked. I felt like I had unlocked a time capsule from someone who's 60 years old and they're telling all their regrets and all this stuff. But like, family's important. And I felt like I got that wisdom just by doing it. And well, I wanted to ask someone else the question of like, if family's first, then why aren't you including them in your life? And that was when I realized how many things I needed to do in order to do that, in order to include them in my life. This is what I'm drawing here on the table is Aristotle's persuasion triangle. Like it is persuading others and yourself of a certain thing. That is true. So we've got logic, we've got emotional connection, and we've got credibility. And when people haven't got convinced parents, or like people haven't got them being go with a journey,
prospects in terms of like sales cycle plans, speaking prospects.
Like knowing people is knowing this triangle right here. And if you can know the fact that you have to go through this triangle like so many fucking times, even like myself, to know that I was going to do it, I had to persuade myself in all those three areas over and over and over again to understand that I can actually make it happen. Same with our parents. If they're skeptical about our past, they've got a ton of conditioning, you have to go through the emotional connection they have to what you're speaking on so they can believe in it. You have the logical aspect of it so they can understand how it works, and the credibility to understand that you are the person that makes that thing true. And it's like everything happens after a shit ton of that. And it was after like 6 months of saying it out loud, I'd gone through that enough to where when I got it happening, it was super beautiful because I was fully convinced that I'm the guy who prioritizes his family. I'm never going to let this go.
Yeah.
Everything a part of me. And beforehand, it was sort of like maybe half-assed. Like logically, I hadn't done it yet. Emotionally, I hadn't felt that like presence with them yet. Like it wasn't really there. And like credibility-wise, I didn't feel like I was the person who could do it. And all of that stuff sort of dissolved immediately.
Yeah.
When I was in that space, like just sat by the pool with the and then out to Lombok recently as well, which had this beautiful view of Salong Balinak in Lombok, and beautiful villa. Shout out Dunya. I think one of my buddies went there as well. But you could see the view and that visceral moment of just having that and just really looking around you, bro, seeing that unmatched. One thing I wanted to touch on with that is by moving into more of the lifestyle design part of things. I visualized every moment that I experienced with my parents 6 months before it happened, 8 months before it happened.
Yeah.
Everything led off to that moment through pure, like, the emotional connection I had, the logical and the credibility side of things was all in the future. I had to visually picture myself as that person who made that happen, who flew them out, hugging them at the airport, seeing that view. Everything sort of deja vu the fuck out of me. And that was why it was super like, holy shit, I'm that guy now. when it happened, but it also was just as casual as me visualizing it. It was, you wouldn't be able to see it unless you had both of those perspectives. Like you had videos of me meditating and like looking at the exact thing, the outcome that I wanted to do. And I got that concept from Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz.
Yeah.
And that was like completely game-changing.
And that's part of what you do for clients as well, is helping them see themselves in the most ideal version of themselves and visualize it. So I think that self-understanding is one of the ways that I've had like the biggest progression in business as well. So I'd be interested to speak to you a bit more about ego, but also have there been any other tools that you've used to understand yourself?
Yeah, I 100% say it would be investing in mentors. And that's like, you could call it a tool, you could call it a vessel, but like the main thing that you get from investing in a mentor is a second lens on who you are. You can see exactly where you're falling short, where your habits are, how you carry yourself, what you commonly do that causes you to go into, open loops, all this stuff, because someone else is like, if they're a good mentor, at least fully eyes on, they care so much about you, where they've got open communication on you're 40 short on this, you're being a pussy on this. There's so much stuff you're doing right this way, like that enforces some good self-understanding. And a mentor is honestly early on, at least one of the only people who can give that to you if you're in a certain like negative space. Like there's no app or tool or productivity book or anything that will get you into a space except someone else's perspective. Like someone who you literally have to pay to tell you that you're being a bitch and this is not going to work out if you're sat in this spot and you're not doing the right things and all this stuff. Genuinely, if you're looking for a tool to do that, I could not say anything more than invest in someone. Don't know how little you know your true self until someone else tells you who you are.
Often though, somebody who's ahead of you, it's very fucking obvious, like what you need to do next to grow your business. And in your head, it's quite wishy-washy, like you need to do this, 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 and this. And the right person can sometimes see it in 10 seconds of speaking.
Yeah.
Like five minutes of speaking to you, like, no, this is what you need to do. And it's like, it's when you have somebody just tell you that, it's like an amazing thing as well.
Two of those things when it comes to like tools, I would 100%, if you prompt it correctly, use AI as your second perspective, because if you can give it enough context on exactly what you're doing, exactly the outcome and what's conducive with that, all of the stuff you need to reverse that, AI is going to be like super, like 50 times more responsive than a mentor could be on WhatsApp, something like, for example, my mentor now has coded an entire chatbot on me because he sees that tool is super useful and it really is.
It's a self-serve as well.
But literally, if you want a certain person's life and you know that to be true, they're like a family man, they've got everything you deem successful, just listen to what they have to say and you will become that person. Like that concept has been like ever so clear to me as I've gone through each and every person that I've spoken to in this journey. Like if I followed Darren's advice from like to a T, I would be a 7-figure consultant right now on the beach about Atlantis speaking to someone else. It would literally become that. Lifestyle design is in that aspect of speaking to people, listening to exactly what they have to say and treating the person who has your life, their advice with utter importance. Like that is exactly.
I think the good thing about a coach though as well is like you're getting depth from one person.
And I think that's the main reason why a lot of people who have succeeded so well, because they've just focused on the exact outcome based on the advice they're getting from people who are like millions of levels above them in their own heads. And I would say when you start like adding depth across the board rather than like on the vertical and allowing things to branch out from that and really like take your attention away from what really matters, that is where people also self-sabotage. They just don't focus on exactly the advice, which is conducive with the outcome. They see that at the same level and they don't cut off the advice that isn't going to get them where they want to be. It genuinely is the easiest way to succeed if you just focus on that one person's advice, because then you're not really tied to someone else's view of what's successful, what they deem as like what you need to do. When they look at your business and they also don't have the life that you want, then they're not going to give you the advice which is going to get you that. And a lot of people just fall short of that. I think that's like one of my main lessons every day is I kept speaking to people who weren't the people who had done what I wanted to do. And then lately I didn't have the life I wanted.
again, it comes down to understanding yourself better, because then you can also see yourself in other people. So for example, like one of the books that really transformed my life was The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And my MBTI, or like my personality type, is an ENTP, which means like I'm extroverted, intuitive, thinking and perceiving. Tim Ferriss is also like typed as an ENTP. So naturally, it makes sense that like I really resonate with the things that he says.
Yeah. How do you find out your personality?
I just did, you can do it with just an online test, but then also like asking ChatGPT. But I would say it's super useful. Like Sam Ovens talks a bit about it as well, about how your personality type affects what you're good at, what could be limiting you. Because the idea with your personality type is a bit of a balance, but you want to like lean into your strengths, but then you also don't want to let it limit you, so that it's like, oh, I'm an introvert, so I can never do extrovert things. I can never go to a networking event. I can never do a sales call because I'm an introvert. Long term, you want to set up your business so that you're doing your high leverage, genius earn activities. Like maybe you're an introvert that's extremely gifted at building systems. Long term, you want to set it up like that. And that means getting people around you, systems, hiring people who can do the things that you're not good at, that would move your business forward. But it also involves you becoming like an ambivert, in the way that you can change what you're good at for particular times. Like if I need to speak to everybody to bring my business forward, you got to do it. Like you've just got to do it. You can't let that hold you back.
Yeah, I guess subconsciously when you're working a job you don't like, or when you're, not getting the outcome that you want, or things aren't really going your way, it is to do with the fact your personality type does align with certain things. It just doesn't work with some others. But on the same side of the coin, you should use that as evidence to suggest you can't do anything, because
Yeah.
I like to see that you are constantly communicating with your true self by understanding stuff like that, and getting to know that person and how they carry themselves, what they value, what they're good at. But that person is also as limitless as you can believe them to be. And all of that is super important to understand when making decisions and when choosing your path or staying in that path. If it's not feeling right, then just know that there is a version of you who is doing exactly what you want to do. Yes. And I also believe we're like, in the nicest way possible, we are the stupidest motherfuckers on earth when it comes to all that stuff. Like, we genuinely might not know as much as we think we know, but in like the astronomical sense, as much as we don't know much about the wildlife in the ocean,
Yeah.
we genuinely don't know that what we're thinking about and what we're focusing on in terms of I can't do this because of this certain thing is all constructed by humanity at the end of the day. So you genuinely can't tell which is true or not unless you actually spend time seeing the evidence unfold in proper, like, good versus bad data, level head, clear mind, looking at everything and understanding that that is actually true. So everything we built up as humanity is super fun to navigate through and realize what works, what doesn't. I think that personality test does actually check out certain elements of strengths and weaknesses, where if you do lean into stuff, you'll see returns. But yeah, then again, we've all just decided that by looking at the world and constructing that out of something. So yeah, we're all in the
And
same.
it's based on the answers that you put in as well. So if those answers are coming from a like ego or some of the stuff which you discussed as well, like it may not be reflective, that personality type, of the true you. It may be shown like what you've become because of your environment, but there may be a different version of you that lives around the corner.
Yeah.
Like typically when I've done those tests, they have came back with similar results for me over time, but I know that they're fluid. Like they can change. Like you can become more extroverted. You can, maybe the reason that you're not extroverted is because all the people around you are assholes. Like,
Yeah.
So completely flipping. What do you think is next for you? And like, what's a dream life for you, or a long-term plan?
I've actually mapped out a lot of this beforehand. I think it was like all this or something. I did a 10-year plan for roughly what I wanted to do. Next thing for me is the retreat from war, is what I call it. So I came out to Bali with not absolutely nothing, but I was in mentally the trenches. I was not in the right headspace, and built the habits and done anything that was valuable to me. I had built that stuff only through like stepping out my comfort zone over and over again, coming out to Bali, building the business, speaking to a shit ton of people. And now I've sort of gone to war, done thrown some battleships out there and really gone for it. I'm going to retreat from more. I'm going to go back to the UK for a little bit. I'm good to Bangkok before then, but mainly to understand what's changed, what my headspace is, what I've learned, and do that quite quickly at the start of the year, and then head back out to travel and go back out to war. What I want to really do for this next stage of my life is go ham on things, just go ham on life, because there's certain parts of my life where I feel like I haven't gone as hard as I could be, or other stuff, but I just really want to give fucking life a go.
Yeah.
And like a massive part of what I want to do for the new year, for example, is go hard on YouTube. Another part is to travel a shit ton, but across 3 different countries, mainly like just spend that half of the year just understanding what locations give me the best outputs and everything, and just give life a fucking go, man. Because I've realized more than ever now that everything I'm doing, like doing this business, you know, making all this money, spending time with clients and all this stuff, it's all arbitrary. It's all just, at the end of the day, material. But I'm going to spend as much time above everything else going as hard as I can, even more than I have done in the past year and a half, on the internal. Like, you cannot get the returns you get externally from the ones you get internally.
Yeah.
Like, as beings, we can we can be self-sufficient. We can be completely content and happy with our lives once we understand our internals. Going ham on that, I genuinely can't wait to see what it actually brings out in the external. But
I love this. Like, I don't usually do New Year's resolutions, but for the last 3 or 4 years, I've had like a theme. And I remember it in 2024 being like volatility. Like, I wanted to embrace volatility. Like, I wanted a year with extreme highs and like low lows. Like, I just wanted to experience things, go full out. Wanted to like travel and meet cool people. And not that I wanted this to happen, but if I lost my passport or something, it'd be okay. Like, I wanted a year where I could just experience as much as possible.
adversity.
Yeah, yeah. And then it was like 2025. It was more about like stabilizing. So like integrating that back into myself. But I think having like a theme for the entire year, like a season of like what you're coming into next, like growth of experience, or what you say about retreating from war, like I relate to as well, because I spent nearly a year and a half out in Bali when I first left, not just Bali, but remotely out in Asia before I went back to the UK to see my family, which was a really long time. And a lot had happened at home during that time that I needed to reintegrate. I needed to like touch back on those relationships and reintegrate it back in myself as well, to like be able to return to war after that, like go back and do business after it.
Yeah.
And returning home gave me the emotional clarity and permission to carry on, which I think is not too bad as well. It's not too bad for a short period of time as you cut yourself off your previous life and to build something new. But at some stage, the next stage of growth is becoming sort of whole again.
You have to reconnect the dots. Otherwise, like, if you just spend enough time like placing dots and keeping going, then you will not have a straight line. You might have a string of a life. You end up sort of, you know, just dotting around, and that will end up drifting you away from ever being able to reconnect with that, which is not like a scenario that would ever happen. Like, stuff is still going to be there. Your hometown is still going to be around. All the it's going to be fine. People will come and go, but all the stuff will still be around. All this stuff. The main thing though is closing the loop out of your, like, on the grand scheme or the grand spectrum of things. You need to close the loop on certain things. Go back and see and learn from your previous environment and your new context. Super important. That's why I'm doing it.
Because eventually as well, you need a change from the change. Because the new things in the new environment, you'll develop new blind spots. And like, there'll be things that aren't integrated well into the wholeness because you've neglected important parts of your past. And in your new environment, there are maybe things that are like weird or like just not, they don't fit with a cohesive vision of where you should go. And every single location in the planet is going to have disadvantages and advantages. Like, I imagine if you spend a lot of time in Dubai, extremely competitive, lots of wealth, incredible place to scale a business, but you are quite likely to lose grasp on some of the relationship side of things.
Yeah.
I think it's harder in terms of family and like female male partners in Dubai. So maybe you need to go back to your home country or somewhere else where you're going to get that experience to be able to become whole.
Home could teach you as much as like going out to places like Bali can, and it's all reminders. I think when you want to go back to a certain place, you want to, you know, get back to a certain aspect of your life, it is to remind you of what is important to you, what drives you, what puts you in a position of, you know, success, or what you would deem as successful. 90% of learnings are reminders. I love that, because if you look back into a certain part of your life and still learn something from it,
or learning it at the right time. Like, you could read a book for a second time and take something completely different away. The Millionaire Master Plan is a good example of that type of book, where it adjusts with where you are at in life. But also, things, if you read The Superior Man or something when you're 8 years old, you're probably not really going to pick up on what it's saying, or it's not going to resonate with you as deeply as after you've been through like some experiences in relationships. So returning to places, returning to ideas, re-remembering could be what helps you grow. I think one thing that is going to be interesting for you next year is seeing how travel affects your growth, because in my experience, travel has been great for growth, but then also sometimes periods of stability. So having like stable routine, you have stable gym, stable desk setup, a place where your camera is on an X, ready for you to record, all the systems, processes in place, and a simplified life. Your meals come to you, your washing's done for you, etc., and you sacrifice some of that when you travel, or you know, you're living from place to place. Like, I think it'll be an interesting theme of next year for you about to what extent can I grow in these places, and to what extent do I feel like my energy is being trained by switching places as well.
I don't think you can really build a successful business by like traveling a shit ton, in terms of going from country to country every couple of weeks and stuff like that. But I do believe that you're bang on when it comes to the periods of stability and instability, and having all of that as a necessary part of the process, where you have places where nothing will be set in stone, and then there will be places where they are. And
navigating that for me, I think, is going to be a big challenge as well, is to what extent do I take on new experiences? If somebody invites me to Afghanistan, that's something random, which there is actually a guy who's invited me to Afghanistan.
Really? I thought you were
no, I thought it was a joke as well when you created the group chat, but he's quite a funny guy. He's like a fitness coach. Shout out Sam Schofield, but he kind of wanted to do some like adventure travel, like make some kind of big experience. I don't know if you've seen like when Joe Fazer went to Afghanistan, like he got his camera taken and like basically had a terrible experience. But just to make the point that maybe I would embrace some experiences which were more fun. Wouldn't want to do anything that was like just stupid or like self-sabotage, but a balance between a stable year and periods of like unpredictability and newness is like an important part of lifestyle design as well.
So that's an important part of reminding yourself that lifestyle is serious. It's important to lead into the instability, like you started the year off with, like the adversity on that side of things. But what's your new word for the year?
I really haven't decided, but I do actually think it was going to be like something to do with rhythm. So both me and my business partner, so just to go back to like genius types, like I'm a steel, so I create things through like systems and leverage. Chris is a dynamo, so he's great with ideas. And to grow our business, one thing that we've both lacked is this like tempo, which is the consistent rhythm. So the idea that you want to be doing consistent activities to book calls every week, you want to do consistent fulfillment so that clients are happy, and you don't just want to send 50 messages one week, you want to send it next week, the week after, the week after. And I think that business wise, that's how we reach the next scale, is when we do everything that we've already done really well, but with a consistent rhythm for a prolonged period. So for me, to grow in business, next year it's about rhythm. And just zooming out, I do think that business is the most important focus for me, at least in the first half of the year, because I've just set up everything in my environment to optimize for business. I think that money is like a big unlock in a lot of different areas of life. It's not the only thing, but I think I have like a brilliant opportunity to compound on what we've already done to hit new heights with the business. So I would say rhythm. But I've literally been thinking about this for like the last 2 weeks, trying to end on a word. But can I ask the same question back to you?
Yeah. Well, I suppose like starting off the year with going back from war, and pushing more stuff in the direction of like going back. I I had the word of reconnection back there, but there is elements of just the word connection in that. Like I want to connect the dots. I want to look back and realize how all of this has even happened, and like
Yeah.
put into perspective how I can move forward in the best way possible. And that's the best way. Connection, I think, if I can connect the right outcomes to my current vision, if I can connect my current inputs to my current, like how I carry myself, my actions, I want to connect like a web of everything that I'm currently doing. And that's what's going to give me everything I need to bank off of, to act upon, to do everything that I do at my day-to-day life and my day-to-day compartment. And yeah, connection is like a main part of what I'm doing now. Like, my brother's here in Bali, parents have just left. I'm starting off, or at least going into the new year, with I'm connecting with exactly what I need to be doing, whether it be my true self, whether it be the right thing I need to do, whether it be the family, the people, the friends. The whole thing is I'm connecting to what truly matters. And I think that's going to really carry me through.
I really like the idea as well of like connecting the threads of things that have happened together. Like, because I think it's so hard to remember what you've done and remember how that's affected who you are now. And like, yeah, like build a cohesive timeline of everything that happens. Because when you live like a high velocity life, like things move really quick, and connecting them together. I know it's a different form of connection, but you did also kind of mention it. It's like connecting things together so you can realize what matters and what has mattered is really cool.
And I think that's going to be one of the best ways I can even operate for next year.
Yeah.
Onto my entire life, if I use that as a way to appreciate what I've got around me, or to work at the right pace, to do the certain things that make me who I truly am.
What do you think are the next steps on the business side to scale your business and grow it further?
Gonna go ham on YouTube. Content's gonna be a huge focus, but mainly next steps in the business is content's gonna be great because I'm gonna be super product focused. Like, they say that if you have a good product, you don't have to worry about anything in terms of marketing, which is completely true. If I am the USA, which is the best in the info mindset space, then I will make the biggest and the best product that there is known. And if that's the focus, then everything else sorts itself up. And if that is something I need to act online to put right now, that's the step. For product focus and just making people so much fucking money.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So product is delivering client results, making them money. That is the product. Or
Building
and product is you as well. Like in the same sense that an online fitness coach, they are the product to some extent. And when they have a great physique, you know that you can trust them to some extent more than a coach who's fat. And for the same extent, if you're producing loads of content, performing well, getting your clients results, you're the living embodiment of your product. Like,
as a coach, I think that's like pretty one-to-one with anything you do, is that you are the product.